The legendary woman was born on March 4, 1932. When she was just 16, she witnessed the enactment of one of the most brutal segregation systems the world has ever known. This system, called apartheid, made black people prisoners in their own homeland. The white government exploited the labor of many Africans of color and forced millions to leave their homes for impoverished townships. They controlled their lives, restricting where they could go and dictating how they should live and work. Prohibited to go to school after the age of 16, Miriam Makeba worked as a nanny and maid.
And, you take that baby, put it on your back, and it feels the warmth of your back, and you hold it. And the child really becomes like yours. And this is the child that will grow up and call you names.
With a voice so profoundly beautiful, Makeba rose to fame in South Africa, joining the popular Manhattan Brothers while forming a quartet of women called the Skylarks. However, the unrelenting oppression of apartheid put a stranglehold on her.
There was just no scope for me as a black entertainer. In 1958, the government passed a new law that no Africans could perform in the cities, in any of the city halls, and so forth.
As a result, she briefly left the Manhattan Brothers to join African Jazz and Variety, where film producer Lionel Rogerson discovered her. He asked her to perform 2 songs for his anti-apartheid documentary. At the time, she was unaware of the consequences that would arise from starring in the film. Makeba then traveled to Italy for the premiere at the Venice Film Festival. From there, she traveled to London, where she was introduced to Harry Belafonte.
I suggested to her that there might be some things that I could offer and some platforms I could extend to her, and she accepted that offer.
After negotiations to get her to the U.S., Makeba was on her way to America. She became an instant success. After performing on The Steve Allen Show and opening at the Village Vanguard, she received rave reviews from almost all the major newspapers and magazines. She amazed people with the way she fused jazz with traditional African songs and with her pure and impeccable voice.
Not only did it have power and beauty as an instrument, what makes great voices indelible is what people sing about.
Miriam Makeba sang about her country's struggle, opening the world up to the suffering of her people. She soon became an international star, becoming the first African woman of color to win a Grammy. Meanwhile, the situation in South Africa worsened.
It happened on Monday, March 21st, 1960. Several hundred natives gathered peaceably to protest the pass laws. Police mounted on tanks opened fire. 69 natives were killed, 176 wounded.
It was then Makeba's mother decided to send Bongi, Makeba's daughter, to the U.S.
On the teeming sandy beaches, in the summer heat.
It was during this tragedy where she learned of her exile. She wanted to go home for her mother's funeral, but the South African consulate refused to allow her back in the country. They were punishing her for appearing in Come Back Africa. Matters became worse when Nelson Mandela, the leader of black resistance, was arrested and sentenced to life in prison.
Bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwanongqongqo, nanku Mandela, chilungwini yini wema Afrika zoteni.
She used her fame to be able to get to the media and to let the world know how much we were suffering here.
I ask you and all the leaders of the world, would you act differently? Would you keep silent and do nothing if you were in our place? Would you not resist if you were allowed no rights in your own country because the color of your skin is different to that of the rulers? And if you were punished for even asking for equality? I appeal to you and through you to all the countries of the world to do everything you can to stop the coming tragedy. I appeal to you to save the lives of our leaders, to empty the prisons of all those who should never have been there.
Married to Stokely Carmichael in 1968, she moved to Guinea, becoming their ambassador to the UN. She continued to draw attention to the suffering of her people, performing shows in Europe and Africa.
Somewhere to blues, somewhere to blues, somewhere to blues, somewhere to blues.
Then, in 1990, the South African government caved in under the pressure of the international community and began dismantling the apartheid system. Nelson Mandela was released from prison and convinced Makeba to come back, and after 31 years of exile, she returned to her homeland. The first democratic election was held in 1994, marking the end of apartheid. In 2005, Miriam Makeba announced her retirement, but despite a series of farewell concerts, she never stopped singing. Then, the fateful day came in Italy on November 9, 2008. While performing at a concert, Miriam Makeba collapsed on stage. Her last audience and her last applause accompanied her as she was rushed to the nearest clinic. Unable to revive her, she was pronounced dead the next day. Throughout her lifetime, Miriam Makeba suffered her own tragedies. In spite of this, she chose to carry the burden of her people. Although faced with adversity, she never gave up. She will be remembered as someone who fought for what she knew was right. She used her most valuable weapon, her voice, and fought back with song.
Every Fridays and Saturday nights, it's pata pata time.